The learning outcomes for this topic on physical and chemical properties and physical and chemical changes include the ability to identify and distinguish between chemical and physical properties of matter. At the end of this video, you should be able to identify and distinguish between chemical and physical changes in matter. And you should also be able to determine if a property of matter is intensive or extensive. Part of studying chemistry is observing chemical and physical properties. A physical property is something that is being observed without changing the substance. Some examples of physical properties are color, odor, density, melting point, boiling point, hardness, and texture. Let's take, for example, copper. If we were to observe a sample of copper, we would notice the color of copper is, metallic copper color. Copper has a bit of a metallic smell. We would comment on the texture. Copper is smooth. If we wanted to look up the boiling point and melting point of copper, we could do that. So all of these, color, odor, texture, and so on, are physical properties. Now, on the other hand, we have chemical properties. These properties can only be observed when a substance is changed into another substance. Some examples of chemical properties include flammability, which is the ability to burn in oxygen, toxicity, the ability to undergo oxidation, radioactivity, and chemical stability. Let's take a look again at copper. So when copper is exposed to oxygen, copper undergoes a chemical reaction. Copper is changed into another substance. And you can see this visually. The copper is no longer copper colored, and the material is now a blue-green color. So this is going to have other physical properties that are different from our original copper sample. So the fact that copper oxidizes is a chemical property. Now let's talk about how matter changes. There are two main types of changes that can take place: chemical and physical changes. These are relatively unique to each substance, but some substances share certain chemical properties or chemical traits. Usually when you think of a chemical change, it involves some type of chemical reaction. For example, we have hydrogen and oxygen. When they are burned, they produce water. This is an example of a chemical change. We are combining hydrogen atoms and oxygen atoms to form molecules of hydrogen and oxygen. Some examples of chemical properties are flammability, or the ability to burn in oxygen, toxicity, oxidation state, radioactivity, and chemical stability. Physical change means that you are changing the state or physical appearance of the substance, but not actually changing the chemical composition of the substance. For example, if you took water and you were boiling the water, like we're doing here in this image, boiling the liquid water and converting it to steam or gaseous water, you're just changing the state of the matter. But it's still H2O, so it hasn't changed in terms of its chemical composition. Dissolving is another example of a physical change. Let's say we dissolve sugar in water. It's still sugar. We could evaporate the water and you would still have pure sugar again. So that's an example of a physical change. There are two types of properties: intensive and extensive properties. Intensive properties are independent of the sample size. For example, water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. A cup of water will boil at the same temperature as a large pot of water. So the sample size doesn't matter for intensive properties. Extensive properties, on the other hand, depend on the sample size. Some examples are the amount of substance, moles, mass, volume, energy, enthalpy, entropy, heat capacity.